Great. All right, so diving in this morning. We are going to start with a roll call. So if you are representing one of these USOs, please give me a shout, either out loud or in the chat. Do we have someone here from Carleton? Carleton Ukrainian Students Club. No, no one at the moment, that's fine. Do we have anyone from Kitchener-Waterloo Ukrainian Association of Students?
Yes.
Great, thank you. McGill?
Yes, here.
Wonderful. McMaster?
Yes, here.
Wonderful. Queens?
Yes, here.
Great. Ukrainian Students Association of Barrie? Ukrainian Students Association of Barrie? No, okay, not here at the moment. Ukrainian Students Club at Ryerson?
Here.
Wonderful. Ukrainian Student Society at the University of Alberta? Okay, University of Guelph, Ukrainian Students Club. University of Guelph? Okay. University of Manitoba?
Here.
Here.
Wonderful. University of Saskatchewan? U of S? Okay. University of Ottawa?
We are here.
We've got a bunch of folks from Ottawa. Awesome. University of Toronto?
Yes, here.
Great, thank you. I can confirm UVic is here. And Western?
Here.
Wonderful. Thanks, everybody. So that does confirm that we do indeed have quorum. Fantastic. All righty. So I'm just sharing my screen with you here. And you should now be able to see the presidium minutes. Can someone let me know if that's not the case? Not hearing anything? I think that's a good sign. All righty.
No, we still see that. Welcome to SUSK Congress.
Okay, thank you. I have to hit new share already. How about now?
Yeah, we're good.
Great. Thank you, everybody. All right, so we are going to call the meeting to order at 10:16 a.m. PST, 11:16 a.m. MST, 12:16 p.m. CST, and 1 p.m. or 1:16 p.m. EST. And Roman, would you be willing to announce the results of the election, please?
Sure. Okay, so thank you, Devin, for starting that up. Thank you, Kirsten, who was our project director last year. I don't believe she's on the call today, but thank you for being the facilitator of kind of yesterday's elections. Thank you, Natalie, for setting up the Election Buddy platform and getting everybody acquainted with everything. And also thank you to UCC for verifying the elections and validating the results. So with that all being said and done, I'd like to announce the 2020-2021 SUSK Executive, which consists of myself as President, Devin as Vice President National, Irina as Vice President Finance, Secretary Chase, Nicola as Vice President West, Larissa as Vice President Central, Mark as Vice President East, Raya as Alumni Director, Danya Pankyov as Internal Relations Director, Kira Julinski as Project Director, Media Director is Maya Pankyov, and Alexandra Holik as Student Director. So once again, congratulations to all of you. If anyone has any questions on the election process or kind of some of the results or anything along those lines, feel free to raise them now. Otherwise, I will take your silence as
Roman, do you want to just quickly explain what's going to happen with the one position that went unfilled?
Yeah, so essentially what's going to happen, so External Relations Director went unfilled, and we have had this scenario happen in the past. So going forward is going to be a very simple process in the sense that you'll see over the next week or two an application go out for that position, at which point anybody is eligible to apply for that position, and it'll just be a simple application process. It's still to be determined whether we'll ask the individual to do a video sales pitch or not, or whether it'll just be a written submission. So more details will come on kind of how that works, but essentially it'll be a outside of the Congress spectrum, and you'll kind of have there'll be a deadline on which to apply for, and then basically the executive will make it, the new elected executive will make a decision, and at which point you'll also all get an email that will explain who we've chosen, and just to confirm that you guys are all okay with it.
Great, thank you, Roman. So we need a motion to destroy the election ballots. And I know that sounds a little funny this year, given that it was all online, but that essentially means just closing down the election buddy for our online procedures. So is there someone who would be willing to move that election ballots be destroyed after the successful tabulation of votes pursuant to the procedures set out in the bylaws and policies?
I'll motion for that. This is Natalie.
Natalie, thank you. And can we get a seconder for that?
I'll second that, Maya Pankyou.
Thank you, Maya. Okay, and so just like the other day, I will call for all in favor, all opposed, and any abstentions. If you are in favor, feel free to just sit in silence. And when I call for any nays or any abstentions, if at that time you wish to speak up, you can either say something or you can say something within the chat. So all in favor of the motion to destroy the election ballots? All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great, that carries. Thank you, folks. So moving on to the Constitutional Committee report. So I am going to pass things over to Steph.
Hi guys. So some of you may have been here in 2018 when we first did a complete overhaul of the bylaws, policies, and procedures. So this is kind of just a continuation of that process. There's not a lot changing. It's just a few minor changes just to make sure that we fully comply with the Non-for-Profit Corporations Act. So you should have gotten a copy of each of the amended documents probably at least 1 month ago. So the only thing that I will walk you through, so in short, the only thing that's changing is that the past president is no longer going to be like an ex officio director. So they're going to officially not have any sort of voting rights on the board. They didn't in the past, but the way that we had, after we had moved to become an official federal non-for-profit, it basically says that each of your directors has to vote. So we've removed the past president as a director, and now they sit as an officer of SUSK, or the corporation. So they still have an official role and they attend meetings in that capacity, but they will not be voting. That's basically the only substantial change. The other changes are a bit more, I don't know, a little bit more technical. Now there's just a separation between what a director is and what an officer is, but in practice, it's exactly the same. So basically everyone that sits on the board is a director, but holds an additional office per se. So like an office is like secretary, for example, or vice president, or vice president of finance. Those are offices. Other than that, nothing else has changed other than like really minor things and little word changes that just are more legal versus layperson terms. But if anyone has any questions, I would be more than happy to answer those. The only thing is once this motion is on the floor, I am not making this motion, only because I have made all of the amendments, and someone else should make that motion. But beyond that, happy to take questions. Again, there's not a lot changing, but if there's something I can explain, I'm happy to do so.
One thing I want to highlight is, I don't know if Steph mentioned this, maybe I just missed this, but you guys all should have received, this about a month and a half ago. So even if this motion is passed, or when this motion is passed, even though no changes can be made to it, if you do have any questions going forward, you're more than welcome to always reach out and ask, and we will be more than happy to address the questions you may have.
All right, well, if there are no questions, may I ask that, I'll just pass this over to Devin so that she can ask or call for the motion.
Thanks, Steph. Is there anyone who is willing to move to approve the amendments of the SUSK bylaws, policies, and operating procedures that were submitted to the memberships 30 days prior to Congress?
I'll make that motion, Devin. It's Irina.
Thank you. And we have my name down as seconding that. So sure, why not? I'll second that. All right, all in favor? Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, great. So that carries. Thank you, everybody. So next we're moving on to the resolutions. And the resolutions is a really exciting part of the presidium. Essentially, the resolutions set the direction of SUSK for the upcoming year. So they're a series of directives that are being created by us, the SUSK Congress membership, and are meant to help guide SUSK and where we would like to see SUSK go in the next year. So these have been prepared by the Resolutions Committee. So myself, Chase Gargis, Anastasia Goronicha, and Irina Boyko. That being said, they are propositions. So if you have any questions or if you would like to propose any changes, that is absolutely within your right, and we encourage you to do so. Also, if there's something that has not been included in the resolutions that you would like to be included, that you think, wow, yeah, SUSK should really do this year, please let us know at any time. We really, really want you to engage in this process as much as you can. So if you would like to speak, please just hit the raise your hand feature and we will call on you, or you can enter. I'll make sure I've got the chat open here, or you can throw a line in the chat and we will see that and you can either speak to us through the chat, or if you say, hey, I want to talk on the chat, I'll see that and we'll make sure you get the chance to speak. So with that, we will get started.
Sorry, Devin, quickly, just interrupt you quickly. One thing I would encourage is, yeah, please kind of follow the proper processes, raise your hand. If everyone starts unmuting themselves and making their voice heard, this is going to take forever. So if you want to speak, we highly encourage you to. Just if everyone's speaking over themselves, then nobody's going to hear anything and nothing's going to get done. So just kind of simple processes.
Great, thank you, Roman. That's a great reminder. And after each resolution, we will, just like with all of our motions, we will call for in favor, opposed, and abstentions. So we're starting off with just a couple of greetings. So resolution number 1. Be it resolved that the 2020 National SUSK Congress acknowledges the tireless and dedicated work of the 2020 National SUSK Congress Committee. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Resolution 2. Be it resolved that the 2020 National SUSK Congress greet the outgoing SUSK National Board of Directors with the successful completion of their term. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful. All right, and then moving on to administration. Resolution 3. Whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress sees it important to maintain the long-term continuity of SUSK, be it resolved that the incoming National SUSK Executive continues using the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, UCC, National Office address in Ottawa, Ontario, as the central mailing address, and have any SUSK mail/correspondence forwarded to the concerned individual. Be it further resolved that the incoming SUSK National Executive continue to employ a national director and, where possible, summer students. Are there any questions about this resolution? No? Okay, great.
Yeah, actually, sorry. In regards to national coordinator, I would kind of leave that as vague as possible. I mean, SUSK is in the process of looking for a new national coordinator, but it's not kind of, I guess, the most important thing on our mandate. And we've realized that given the virtual environment of next year, we may not need one as soon as possible. So I just kind of keep that as relatively vague as possible.
Is that something that other folks are supportive of, or?
Yeah, I agree. It's something that we can just, if we're using the language of where possible, we can also retrofit that onto the coordinator, and that gives enough vagueness to say that, yeah, we'd like one, but it's not a priority if things change during the year.
Okay, I second that in the chat from Anastasia. Thank you. So we will just change this to continue to employ a national coordinator and summer students when possible. All right. Any further comments or thoughts on that? Great. Okay, all in favor of resolution 3? All opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Moving on to resolution 4. Commemorations. Whereas the Ukrainian Canadian Congress is celebrating its 80th anniversary in 2020, and whereas SUSK is a registered national member organization of the UCC, be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors congratulate the UCC on its 80th anniversary. Pretty straightforward. All in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? Great. So now we're moving on to internal relations. Resolution 5. Whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress recognizes the importance of maintaining bilateral relationships with its member USOs, and whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress finds that electronic communication through email, SUSK websites, newsletters, and social media accounts, and joint meetings and/or regional conferences of the SUSK National Board of Directors and its member USOs constitute the most effective means of communication, be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors make an effort to update presidents and USO presidents of its representatives of its member USOs using the aforementioned methods on a monthly basis at minimum. And be it further resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors hold quarterly meetings with presidents and leading representatives of its member USOs to exchange and discuss ideas, challenges, and opportunities for Ukrainian Canadian students.
I would remove one word from there. In the first, be it resolved, instead of make an effort, just say that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors required to update presidents and USOs.
Great. Any further questions or proposed amendments to this resolution? All right, hearing none. All in favor of this resolution? All opposed? And any abstentions? Wonderful. Resolution 6. Whereas the dissemination of Ukrainian student activity and information to the broader community remains a cornerstone of the SUSK mandate, and whereas the national publication Student remains a widely read and respected journal among Ukrainian Canadians, be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors encourage its direct and indirect membership to provide sufficient content to publish quarterly issues of Student at a minimum. Be it further resolved that as social media is the primary venue in which this generation consumes much of its media, SUSK prioritizes using social media as a platform to disseminate and promote SUSK articles. Are there any questions or proposed amendments to this resolution? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Great. Resolution 7. Whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress deems it important to preserve Ukrainian Canadian culture through the lens of the Ukrainian Canadian student, and whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress holds that archiving publications of Student is the most effective means of preserving this, be it resolved that the student editors seek to obtain issues of Student that are missing in the online archives from SUSK alumni and/or past student editors. Be it further resolved that the student editor continues to add subsequent publications of Student to this online archive, and be it further resolved that the incoming student editor responsibly preserve paper copies of Student and other artifacts. Any questions or amendments to this one? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Great. So this one is a new one this year. Resolution 8. Whereas the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic has led most Canadian universities to move to virtual teaching and programming for the 2021 academic year in accordance with health guidelines, and whereas the events and programs hosted by member USOs have predominantly been in person in the past, be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors encourage member USOs to remain active during the 2020-2021 academic year. Be it further resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors provide resources and support to member USOs on how to plan and run events and programming that are either virtual or follow social distancing protocols and province-specific health guidelines. And be it further resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors strongly encourage its member USOs to practice health and safety-conscious protocols. Are there any questions or proposed amendments about this resolution? No? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Great. Resolution 9. Whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress acknowledges the problematic history of systemic racism and colonialism in North America, and whereas SUSK signed the Ukrainian anti-racist community's calls to action in response to the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020, be it resolved that the incoming National SUSK Board of Directors encourage its member USOs to review the UAC's calls to action and commit to meaningful anti-racist actions. Are there any questions or proposed amendments to this? No? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? And any abstentions? Alrighty. So that is the end of internal. Now we're moving on to policy. Resolution 10. Whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress holds SUSK to continue developing consistent policies and operating procedures as an incorporated federal nonprofit, be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors consult governance and financial professionals to ensure best practices. This is really a continuation of what we've already been doing. Any questions about this one? No? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? And any abstentions? Alrighty. Resolution 11, this is a bit of a long one. Whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress recognizes the longstanding history of harmful othering ideologies in North America, for example, racism, sexism, ableism, etc. And whereas SUSK, as a member of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, proposed the following resolution at the 2019 UCC Triennial Congress in Ottawa, Ontario, which passed. Whereas the Ukrainian Canadian community encompasses a wide variety of identities, and whereas we as a community can do much more to include all Ukrainian Canadians within the activities of all our groups and associations, be it resolved that UCC, by example, seek to include all Ukrainian Canadians regardless of gender, sexual orientations, age, gender assignment, and multi-ethnic identities. And whereas SUSK signed the Ukrainian anti-racist community's calls to action in response to the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020, be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors develop an inclusion policy accounting for diversity and equity within the organization, and be it further resolved that this policy hold members who use hateful terminology and or spread hateful ideologies in any language accountable and provide spaces and opportunities for learning ways in which othering and exclusionism are harmful. This is a big one. So does anyone have any questions about this or any proposed amendments? No? Okay, great. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, and any abstentions? Okay, great. So moving on to external relations. Resolution 12. The 2020 National SUSK Congress recognizes the importance and value of having a national coordinating umbrella for Ukrainian Canadian organizations in the spirit of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. And whereas SUSK is a registered national member organization of the UCC with a designated seat on the UCC Board of Directors, be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors and its member USOs continue to work together with the UCC and its provincial councils and local branches in the interest of the Ukrainian Canadian community. Any questions or amendments to this one? No? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Great. Resolution 13. Whereas SUSK acknowledges the importance of representing the voice of students and ensuring their priorities are heard, be it resolved that the incoming National SUSK Board of Directors develop consistent advocacy strategies representative of Ukrainian Canadian students. Any questions about this one? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? Great. Got another long one here. Resolution 14. Whereas the Government of Canada established the Truth and Reconciliation Commission with the mandate of informing all Canadians about residential schools and documenting the truth of survivors, families, communities, and anyone affected by the residential school system, including a series of recommendations and calls to action to the Government of Canada and the people of Canada. And whereas there are clear parallels between Ukrainians as Indigenous to their own land under siege for centuries and Indigenous peoples in Canada, as Ukrainians have made Canada their home for over 125 years and have had a close relationship with Indigenous communities based on cooperation. And whereas the Ukrainian Canadian Congress at the 2019 UCC Triennial Congress in Ottawa resolved to approach the Assembly of First Nations with the proposition to jointly explore how the Ukrainian and Indigenous communities of Canada can work together to promote mutual understanding and closer cooperation. Be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors approach the Assembly of First Nations Youth Council with the proposition to jointly explore how the Ukrainian and Indigenous youths of Canada can work together to promote mutual understanding and closer cooperation. Be it further resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors commit to opening meetings and events with territorial land acknowledgements, which recognize that the freedom to present Ukrainian culture in North America is indebted to the displacement of Indigenous populations. And be it further resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors encourage its member USOs to commit to similar actions and relationship building. That was a long one, but I think it's important. Does anybody have any questions or amendments they would like to propose for Resolution 14?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
The second whereas, I think one thing that us as SUSK we try to do on a regular basis is not draw comparisons to us and struggles of other communities. So I'd actually propose that we completely remove that one. I think it's important that, look, every community, every group has had their own struggles and we acknowledge them separately. I think I just don't like getting into the comparison game with other communities.
That's fair. I did draw this language directly from the UCC's resolution, but I completely hear that and I'm fine with that. Any further thoughts on that? I might propose, okay, agreed with Roman, great. I might propose that perhaps we take this part out, but leave the Ukrainians have made Canada their home and have had a close relationship with Indigenous communities. Would that be something you would be okay with, Roman? Or would you prefer to take the whole piece out?
Yeah, we can leave that, that's fine.
Okay. Any further proposed amendments or questions?
Yeah, and the last, be it further resolved, I don't know if we want to reword that. I think given the virtual environment of how 2020, 2021 is going to look, I think it may be difficult to encourage USOs to tackle this. I think we can tackle this on a national basis, but I don't know if USOs are going to have the bandwidth to deal with their own issues as well as kind of try to tackle this simultaneously, given the challenges that are already going to exist.
That's a really good point. Does anybody representing a USO have any thoughts on that? Either pro or con?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I think the wording of this, of the be it further resolved, is simple enough. So it doesn't have to be anything huge that USOs commit to doing. but it could be as simple as reaching out, being involved, and having that dialogue, which I think is pretty reasonable for USOs to commit to.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chase. I see Rostik has his hand raised.
One way to kind of do it is we could add that attempt or try to commit to similar actions in relationship building. That way you just add that concept of whatever form that may be, you're obviously going to try, and that kind of finds the middle ground between what Chase and Koman are saying, and it kind of opens the door for multiple possibilities.
That's great. Sorry, could you clarify exactly what you're proposing the wording is?
Oh, just to add, like, I'm not sure which particular word to use, but like after the encourages members, USOs to either attempt or try to commit to similar actions. That way there's a little bit more generality. That way if a USO can, it will. If the realities on the ground don't let it, then it's not.
Maybe attempt to engage in
Sure.
similar
Yeah.
actions? Okay. Roman and Chase, what do you think about that?
Good to go.
Great. Okay, any further thoughts or questions, changes? Okay, not hearing any. I'm gonna call the question. So all in favor? Opposed? And abstentions? Great. Thanks for the teamwork on that, everyone. Okay, moving on to resolution 15. Whereas there is a need to strengthen ties between the various Ukrainian youth organizations in Canada and North America, and whereas Ukrainian youth organizations in Canada exist and operate with different mandates, and whereas a youth interorganizational committee was struck at the 2019 Ukrainian Canadian Congress Triennial Congress in Ottawa, Ontario, to facilitate interorganizational collaboration between UCC member Ukrainian youth organizations. Be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors will actively engage in interorganizational collaboration efforts between Ukrainian youth organizations in Canada through the Youth Organizational Committee and otherwise. Perhaps I should say and/or otherwise. Any questions or proposed amendments? No? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Thanks, folks. Alrighty. Resolution 16. Whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress sees the value of having an international coordinating body for Ukrainian youth and student activity, and whereas SUSK has taken strides to work with fellow Ukrainian youth and student organizations in the past, be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors acknowledge and support Ukrainian students and youth organizations throughout Ukraine, and be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors acknowledge, support, and encourage further development of Ukrainian student and youth organizations throughout the diaspora to engage Ukrainian youth and students. Any questions or proposed amendments? All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Resolution 17. Whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress recognizes the importance of developing working relationships with affiliated individuals and youth groups in Ukraine, and whereas SUSK stakeholders stand to gain perspective and insight on issues plaguing fellow youth in Ukraine from developing such relationships, be it resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors undertake at least one tangible and actionable project that is implemented in conjunction with youth and student groups in Ukraine. Any questions or proposed amendments around this one? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on. So now we're moving on to the strategic planning section. Resolution 18. Whereas there are undoubtedly a significant number of Ukrainian students in colleges and technical institutes in Canada, and whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress is aware of SUSK's limited exposure among Ukrainian students in colleges and technical institutes in Canada, be it resolved that the incoming Internal Relations Director develop a plan to reach out to students and establish USOs in colleges and technical institutes in Canada wherever possible. Any questions or proposed amendments? Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Resolution 19. Whereas the strength and membership of SUSK and its member USOs depend upon continuous recruitment of new students, be it resolved that SUSK actively encourages its member USOs to reach out to local community organizations, such as youth and cultural groups, to raise awareness about SUSK and its activities. Be it further resolved that SUSK will provide member USOs access to the Ukrainian Canadians Congress's database of Ukrainian organizations and businesses across Canada to further assist in this effort.
I would also add another be it resolved to include that we leverage the student or the high school guidebook to further engage students that are entering university or college.
SUSK leverage.
The wording might be not there, but
So SUSK leverage the high school guidebook. Sorry, could you say that again?
yeah, SUSK leverage the high school guidebook to actively engage students entering university or college.
Great. Any further comments, thoughts around that? Chase?
Yeah, I'm just curious because I've never heard of the high school guidebook before.
Ah.
So that's a thing that we can actually do, or should we just? Because in my opinion, I would maybe word I don't know, like advertise it more to high school students. But if
The high school guidebook is something that's done that just hasn't been released yet, so it's
sweet.
just a matter of a few weeks.
Then perfect. I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's a project that's been in the works for a while now, so that's a great addition. Thank you, Roman. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Nope. Okay. Moving on. Resolution 20. Whereas the continued success of SUSK is reliant upon continued increased networks within the wider Canadian community, be it resolved that SUSK engages students from across ethnocultural communities through cross-collaboration, sharing of best practices, and attending events. Be it further resolved that the incoming SUSK National Board of Directors undertake at least one tangible and actionable project that is implemented in conjunction with youth organizations of different racial or ethnic groups to better foster solidarity and mutual aid. Be it further resolved that SUSK will encourage its member USOs to participate in this project and/or engage with other ethnocultural communities in their respective locations.
That second be it resolved comes down to, I guess, the earlier argument that I don't want to put too much pressure on USOs considering their bandwidth this year. So if we can just kind of reword that to attempt.
To attempt to participate?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts about this one? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Great. All righty. Resolution 21. Whereas the 2020 SUSK National Congress recognizes the importance of raising awareness about Canada's first national internment operations of 1914 to 1920, internment, and the importance of working to expand this awareness beyond the Ukrainian Canadian community. And whereas there are descendants of internment survivors amongst our membership, and whereas June 20th, 2020 marks the 100-year anniversary of the conclusion of the internment, and whereas SUSK dedicated an entire SUSK Congress in 2018 to educating its membership about internment, be it resolved that SUSK and member USOs take action to raise awareness about Canada's first national internment operations of 1914 to 1920 through facilitating on-campus events, holding information booths, and educating other students virtually and on campus. Be it further resolved that during the 2020 to 2021 academic year, SUSK and its member USOs commemorate the 100-year anniversary of the conclusion of the internment through a variety of means. If you have any suggestions around how we can word this to make it really accessible for virtual options, please let me know. I try to accommodate for that in here, but if we can change the wording to make it better, I am all for that. Okay.
Devin, maybe you can add a point about through facilitating on-campus events, holding information booths, and educating others. Maybe include social media campaigns as one of the enumerated items in the list.
That's a great idea.
And that might be more, I don't know, tangible.
Yeah, I love that.
Thanks.
Any other thoughts? Okay, so all in favor of this resolution? Okay, opposed? And abstentions? Great. This is a similar one, Resolution 22, whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress recognizes the importance of raising awareness about the Holodomor and working to expand this awareness beyond the Ukrainian Canadian community. Be it resolved that SUSK and member USOs take action in raising awareness for the Holodomor through virtual and on-campus awareness events, holding information booths, and educating other students on campus through social media platforms, especially during the month of November in correlation with International Holodomor Memorial Day, the fourth Sunday of November, and the month of April, International Genocide Awareness Month. Any additions or proposed amendments?
Yeah, I would say that we'd also be resolved that SUSK adopt a zero tolerance policy for Holodomor deniers and continuously combat this misinformation.
Thank you. That's really important, especially what happened this year. Thank you very much. Any further questions about that? Or
Yeah, Sophia had a good point. Instead of deniers, say denial.
Thank you, Sophia. Anything else? No? Okay, great. All in favor of this resolution? All opposed? And any abstentions? All right. Resolution 23. Whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress recognizes the longstanding Russian aggression in Ukraine, and whereas the 2020 SUSK Congress condemns the Russian Kremlin for illegally imprisoning Ukrainians, be it resolved that SUSK and member USOs take action in raising awareness of Ukrainian political prisoners unjustly imprisoned in Russia, as well as Russian aggression towards Ukraine through on-campus events, continued advocacy campaigns, and partnering with organizations such as Postcards for Prisoners to hold postcard writing campaigns and educate students on local post-secondary campuses. Be it further resolved that SUSK and its member USOs take action in raising awareness about the ongoing human rights abuses towards Crimean Tatars in Russian-occupied Crimea.
I would add another, be it resolved that SUSK actively work to continue to educate the community and its member USOs on current status of Russian aggression in Ukraine, just to make sure that everybody is is informed constantly about what is happening.
Great. Sorry, could you just say that one more time for me?
Be it resolved that SUSK work to educate our community and member USOs on the current situation of Russian aggression in Ukraine.
Okay, great. I liked that. That's wonderful. Thank you. Any further comments, questions, amendments? Okay, all in favor? Any opposition? And any abstentions? Thank you, folks. Resolution 24. Whereas Ukraine is a diverse nation, home to many national minorities, including those of ethnic, gender, sexual, linguistic, and religious minorities. And whereas many of these minority groups still face discrimination within their own communities. And whereas Ukrainian minorities who live in the current war zone and occupied areas are at an even greater risk than those who do not, given the Russian Federation's increasingly discriminatory stance towards minority diversity, especially those of gender and sexual minorities. And whereas SUSK is committed to the inclusion and support of all people, regardless of their ethnicity, gender, sexuality, language, or religion, be it resolved that SUSK commits to identifying and supporting those organizations operating in Ukraine that advocate for and provide services to those people, or these peoples. Be it further resolved that SUSK encourage its member USOs to support efforts to raise awareness for Ukrainian minority groups, and where possible, fundraise for organizations that provide support and services to Ukrainian minorities. Any questions or proposed amendments to this one?
Yeah, I don't like pushing a specific fundraising mandate on USOs. I think each USO has a kind of regional fundraising mandates, and I think that it might be difficult to encourage them to do it on a national level. I think if you want to include that under something that SUSK can look into, I'm fine with that, but in terms of USOs, it's maybe a little more difficult.
Yeah, definitely. I hear that for sure. Any other thoughts to that before I take that out? I see thumbs up. Okay. So perhaps we leave it at just that SUSK encourages its member USOs to support efforts that raise awareness for Ukrainian minority groups.
Perfect.
Great. Any further questions or amendments? Okay, not hearing any. All in favor? All opposed? And any abstentions? Great. Resolution 25. This is a long one, but it's important. Whereas the 2020 National SUSK Congress recognizes the longstanding problematic history of systemic racism and colonialism in North America, and whereas as a community, Ukrainians largely benefit from the racial order of North American societies, and whereas SUSK seeks to protect our non-white members and to strengthen our diaspora by making it more welcoming and inclusive to people with a variety of connections to our community, and whereas SUSK signed the Ukrainian anti-racist community's calls to action in response to the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020, be it resolved that SUSK commits to instating annual anti-racism and anti-bullying training for the SUSK Board of Directors, run by educators who are Black, Indigenous, or people of color, BIPOC, in order to protect members of mixed heritage and or different ethnicity and race. Be it further resolved that SUSK will offer opportunities for member USOs to partake in and/or organize anti-racism and anti-bullying training for their boards of directors and/or members. Be it further resolved that SUSK will offer member USOs anti-racist resources in both English and Ukrainian. Be it further resolved that SUSK will continue to issue public statements condemning systemic racism and will participate in demonstrations for human rights and other ethnic congresses of historically and presently oppressed groups. Be it further resolved that SUSK will henceforth publish content that examines the presence of various ethnic groups and races in Ukraine. Be it further resolved that SUSK will examine the role of North American immigrant groups, including its own in settler colonialism, slavery, westward expansion, mass incarceration, over-policing, and segregation. Be it further resolved that SUSK will create a welcome and inclusive space at our events, programs, and in our virtual community that encourages open and respectful exchanges of ideas, however, will not tolerate personal attacks of any kind. The dismissing of others' experiences of present-day oppression on account of oppression in Ukraine, nor the belittling of others. And be it further resolved that in the future, when seeking guidance on further Ukrainian or anti-racist action, we be committed to hiring BIPOC educators. So this is a really long one, and this is largely drawn from actions proposed by the Ukrainian anti-racist community. I do see that Raya has her hand up.
Yeah, Devin. So I would like to remove the first three, be it resolved, as well as the last one, and then take out the word systemic in the fourth, be it resolved. I know that's a big ask, so I guess I'll explain why. So there's various groups that have been oppressed in the past and continue to be oppressed. So you have like Jewish, Ukrainian, Armenians, Uyghur Muslims, people of color, LGBTQ community, etc. All these groups have and still continue to be oppressed. So the resolution is valid, it's very important, but as an Ukrainian organization, we dedicate resources to oppressed Ukrainians, but it's discriminatory to other groups if we put so much focus on anti-racism. Second, regarding the systemic from the fourth, be it resolved, there's no doubt that systemic racism exists, but we should not be accusing other organizations of having systemic racism. If there's an obvious example of racism within an organization, that's important to address, but using that term is controversial and adds significant blame when we cannot be sure what is actually happening. And then third, we have $33,000 in our bank account. That's half of that, or almost half, 15,000 is from Shevchenko. And that use of that is, there's specific use. So student grants, student mentorship program, high school guidebook, etc. Profits from this past year, $885, and national coordinator cost of $20,000. So without donations, we can't continue as an organization, and we don't have the money to hire additional BIPOC educators, create these resources, anything that requires financial resources, we cannot do as an organization. And then lastly, we're going into a recession. We're not expecting the same amount of donations, same quantity and dollar value donations. And for this reason, I do not think that these four, be it resolved, should be included.
Okay. I have thoughts on that, but I'd like to open the floor to anyone else who'd like to share their opinions. Rostik?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Kai on this one. Just specifically, specifically the parts of hiring is where I kind of get worried, just because, again, it's one of those of the financial status. If we want to somehow talk about trying to do it, or if we know someone who's willing to help USOs, train, etc., there's absolutely no problem with that. It kind of goes into, again, the concept that we are trying to be as inclusive as possible within the means that we have. But yeah, kind of like Anastasia's wrote, it's like, if we can get someone for free, let's do it, no problem. But committing the organization to having to hire someone, given the financial situation and just realities on the ground, may be kind of irresponsible. And I would just kind of see that we put ourselves in a position where if we don't end up hiring someone due to what's going on or whatever reasons, we kind of open ourselves up to criticism of being, well, if you knew the current status of where you guys are, why are you committing yourself to something that you can't follow through on? Maybe just kind of open it up in such a way that if there is someone who's willing to help for free or through some sort of in-kind work, yes, of course, we should open it up and have them come and help, but not commit to a financial side of things.
So just following up with what's been said in the chat, someone has said, Anastasia has said, is it possible to get someone who will do it for free to raise awareness, or can we promote their organization for media? And Helena said, BIPOC educators are essential when discussing their own experiences. Sophia said, is there a way we can say that we want to do this when financially possible? And Helena supports that. I think that's a good option. So perhaps down here we can say,
sorry, just to kind of quickly add to that. Look, when financially possible is another question as well, because we may financially have the budget to do it, but at the same time, I don't know if, I think we'll have Ukrainian issues that will be of higher financial priority, first off. And second off, one of Raya's earlier points is the fact that there are many oppressed groups around the world, and it would be too much to do if we started doing this type of work for every single community. So if we do some sort of base education without kind of the bringing in somebody externally, I think that would be the best approach. So whether SUSK publish content, that's fine. But I think in terms of us bringing people on, I think that gets way outside our bandwidth.
So Sophia has said, alternately, I also don't feel like we should ask BIPOC folks to go through free emotional labor to educate us. Speaking personally, and not in my role as chair, I do think it is incredibly important to bring BIPOC voices in, because we, as a largely white organization, can't understand that perspective. And it is really important to recognize that as an organization and as a cultural group that is predominantly benefiting off of the current system, the way things are set up, I think it is important to bring in those voices. And I do agree that I don't think that we should be asking BIPOC folks to do this for free, but that's my personal opinion. Sophia says, I don't know how to raise my hand, but can I speak? Yes, Sophia, please speak.
Okay, I'll just put my camera on as well. So my thing is also, and this might be a controversial point, but lately there has been a lot of rhetoric going around about how like Ukrainians are Nazis and everything, and obviously that's absolutely untrue, but I feel like it would be beneficial to like promote anti-racist resources in English and Ukrainian and kind of like make an effort to really do that, just to kind of be like, hey, we do support this. And obviously it's not our responsibility to be like, hey, Ukrainians aren't Nazis, but it would help. And I feel like that would be a good thing to say, hey, like, we also are suffering. But I also think that saying that Ukrainians have been oppressed to the same extent as BIPOC is completely invalidating of that struggle, because as much as the Holodomor happened, the internment happened, we still benefit from white privilege, and it's super important to acknowledge all of that. I think that's it.
Thank you, Sophia.
I agree.
Oh,
I agree with Sophia. I think, why don't we suggest, so in terms of like offering resources, great. But the first two be it resolves where we're committing to have some sort of training, which obviously drains financial resources. And the last one, we can add if financially possible or remove, because right now it's not financially possible, so we can't commit to it as an organization.
I think that there's ways that we could look into doing training. And while I do think BIPOC folks should be paid for their work, perhaps we can look into if there are financially viable options, or perhaps even look at resources that have been prepared by BIPOC voices that we can utilize within the organization. So, you know, if there's a training guide that's been created by BIPOC voices that we could then use for free within our organization, just something that I just really think that it's important personally that we as a board and as an organization do take some intentional time to think about this. I see that.
Sure, so why don't we put if financially possible? Like what you're saying, 100% agree. Let's just put if financially possible.
Actually, as a kind of an in-between ground is then basically what Devin just said, if we could somehow write that, what you just said, in terms of let's take a look at what resources we can get, given whether that's the time commitment, the financial commitment, the reality on the ground, whatever that may be, and see what we can come up from that. Like you kind of said it, it's very, I'm just kind of the way I see it is you said it very differently than what is written currently. And I wholeheartedly agree with what you just kind of verbalized, of it being a question of let's see what's out there. We should commit, or we can commit to seeing what's out there, and going from there, because we really don't know. That might be a good way of kind of setting it up as something that, yes, we are being proactive. Yes, we are trying to do this, and we are supportive of it, but also reflect the realities that may or may not be there. And as the situation evolves, also, because as we can kind of agree on COVID and everything else, we really don't know what's going to happen in the next 2-3 months. And committing a direction that is very hard and kind of restrictive might also cause us harm coming 6 months down the road, and just open us up to problems.
Okay, so I see Steph has her hand raised.
Yeah, actually, I'm actually going to echo Rustic. He actually summed up all of my opinions. So I'll just give you a bit of a background in terms of some of the things that we've done in the past. So this is not on the same playing field, but for example, when we were thinking of bringing the endowment forward, before we had made like a resolution that specifically said like SUSK commits to raising X amount of dollars for the endowment, I'm pretty sure the resolution was SUSK commits to like something like researching and consulting XYZ to like build a endowment in the future. And so I think that that's definitely a way that we can at least look into that, because I agree this is extremely important, but there are some points that we don't really know how we're going to instate this yet. So I do think that is value add. In terms of responding to some of the other comments about condemning systemic racism, I think like it's very obvious that systemic racism exists within a lot of organizations, and I think just leaving that is fine. We're not accusing anyone at all. It's just talking about that these things actually exist, and that SUSK is going to work on you know, being the leaders in a movement that, you know, it's hard to be a Ukrainian organization and like try and be woke. I think that there's a lot of factors that work against us. Like it's so difficult to advocate for all of the things that we need to advocate for as Ukrainians, and also support, you know, our people of color and our BIPOC folks that need our support. So there's a lot of things going on, and so it's evident that we do need to look into it more, but we also need to make that commitment that we are going to look into something, because I think like saying you're going to do something and like just sweeping it under the rug, which happens very often, isn't the greatest way to approach this. So I don't think that this resolution should be taken out. I think that it should just say that like SUSK commits to researching and educating itself on how to approach this and providing resources in English and Ukrainian. but those are just my thoughts and based on past experience.
So there's a few, I guess, hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So there's a few things. So look, I mean, the first thing, it comes down to I guess one main fact is we've never approached this with the Jewish community. And why I think that if we bring something like this up, we have to also do this with the Jewish community is because one, to everybody's point earlier, we can never really understand the oppression that the Jews have gone through. Secondly, we owe it to ourselves to be highly educated and understand what the Jews have gone through, because the Jewish community are significant supporters of SUSK. So I would actually, if we want to anti-racism, like I think we should not limit it to people or the BIPOC group. I think we should keep it vague and kind of approach this more as an understanding of ethnocultural groups around the world and their struggles.
Okay, so how would you propose wording that? I'm very much in favor of what you're suggesting. Perhaps, I've just taken out the piece about BIPOC. Perhaps we could say, so commits to research the possibility of instating annual anti-racism and anti-bullying training. We could add anti-Semitism, or we could just say annual. What about just inclusion and diversity training?
Yeah, inclusion and diversity and I mean, you could include anti-racism and anti-discrimination. I think Roman does, yeah, that is a very good point. Although we have worked with Jewish groups in the past, 2016. So we still need to work better with them, but yeah, definitely that's something that is being overlooked here. So that's a very good point.
Sorry, Steph, you said anti-racism and
anti-discrimination. I think anti-discrimination is kind of encompassing like anti-Semitism, you know, homophobia, all of those pieces kind of into one. So that leaves it a bit more vague, but it depends on what the membership is thinking.
The third, be it resolved, however, I think that one should be completely removed, because we as an organization struggle to have resources put out in Ukrainian as is. So I don't want to commit to, one of the tasks that's kind of on the bucket list of things to do is as simple as getting our website translated to Ukrainian. And that's something that we actually haven't had the resources or the bandwidth to do. So I don't feel comfortable committing to offering materials.
Might I propose share? Because when I was thinking about this, there's a lot of resources already created in both languages. So my thought was just perhaps not creating, you know, something brand new, but sharing the resources that already exist. Because then it's not tasking us with additional work.
Share available then.
We'll share
available resources with all available Ukrainian and English resources. Yeah, anti-racist resources with member USOs. So basically just kind of flip it around.
Can we change that to anti-discrimination resources? And then that'll encompass what we're trying to
Yes.
And one thing is for the next, be it resolved, or be it further resolved rather, maybe instead of doing condemning systemic racism, we do condemning racism or discrimination in all forms or something. That way, again, it encompasses everything, not just the systemic kind. And it again kind of goes off of what Steph and Roman talked about of there's other forms or other issues, and that way it kind of doesn't commit us into a shoehorn category.
I think that's great. And I just wanted to clarify, I think that this might, there might have been a miscommunication about this one. It's not about condemning other ethnic congresses, but it's actually about participating in demonstrations for human rights with other ethnic congresses. So about supporting other ethnic congresses. Okay, Raya says, Also, maybe we share content and don't commit to publishing content on the next one. Yes, I agree with that. We'll henceforth share content. Thank you.
That's the same one as the one above, though, no? Or two above?
No, this one's different, I think, because it's talking about examining the presence of different ethnic groups and races in Ukraine specifically. Because these are more related to, you know, general resources about how to work towards anti-racism and anti-discrimination practices. Raya, I see that your hand is still raised. Is there something else you wanted to add, or is it just taking a while to take the hand down?
I was just taking a while to get the hand down, but if I have the mic, the last one now, the last be it resolved no longer makes sense. So we just need to go back to that.
Yeah, I agree, because we're just researching the possibilities right now. Okay, that becomes the end.
And kind of just continuing it on, should we possibly not, be it for the result that SUSK will examine the role of North American immigrant groups and so forth, should it meet also to kind of, if we're going on with the sharing content and trying to examine, should that be something we should consider or not? Sorry, that's kind of a general question.
Sorry, I'm not quite sure what you're suggesting. Are you suggesting?
Sorry, just I guess it kind of stems from just a question and confusion on my part of by like committing ourselves to examine. What do we kind of mean by that? Or is it something? Is it something that we're looking at if there is content available, and obviously there is content available? Is that something that we are attempting to share and disseminate effectively, or is it something that we have someone within the organization that is going to be doing research or working with someone to do said research?
Excellent question. Roman, you have your hand raised? Nope, okay. I do think what we've changed this to does include, you know, these topics. These are various topics that I do think are touched on. But if anyone strongly feels that we should leave this in, I am open to hearing that position. Okay, so we'll take that out. Great. Okay, so let's just, I'm not gonna read it all out for you folks again, but I'm just gonna scroll through it so you can kind of take a look at the amendments that have been made and see if there's anything else that you would like to see changed. Thank you so much for engaging with us, folks. I think it's really, really wonderful that we're having this conversation.
One thing is just, it's a language thing. In the first be it resolved, that SUSK commits to researching the possibility, not just research. The possibility probably is just language.
Good grammar. I'll give you a minute to look through that. And there's one more be it further resolved at the bottom that I'll scroll up and let you take a look at in just a second here. So that's the bottom bit there. Okay. Any further proposed amendments? No? Okay. All right, let's vote. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Thank you so much for engaging with this one, everybody. I think this is an incredibly important conversation for us to be having. All righty. Resolution 26. Whereas the wider Ukrainian Canadian community believes it's important to have young people experience Ukraine firsthand, and whereas SUSK has been in conversation with Cobblestone Freeway Tours about organizing a birthright program for Ukrainian Canadian youth and young adults, be it resolved that SUSK work towards offering a Birthright Ukraine travel program for Ukrainian youth and young adults in the diaspora in conversation with Cobblestone Freeway Tours to be launched when international travel is deemed safe again following the COVID-19 pandemic. Any questions or proposed amendments? Roman?
Yeah, I think I'm still hesitant on the second be it resolved. I don't know if we should include Cobblestone Freeway Tours by name. I know we've been in conversation with them, but I think we may run into the issue that if we start doing fundraising through Shevchenko Foundation, we may have to put out an RFP for this, and that we may have to have multiple bidders on the RFP and see whoever kind of comes out on top.
What if we change the wording around just ever so slightly to say that, be it resolved that SUSK, actually, maybe we could just take it out. We've already mentioned them earlier on.
Correct. Yeah, just leave it, take it out and be resolved.
Like that.
Correct.
Sorry, one question. In terms of that SUSK will work towards offering birthright Ukraine travel, is the suggestion that SUSK is going to be organizing birthright trips and then also seeking that funding? Is that what that's what this be it resolved is reading to me?
So essentially where the conversation is now is we would be basically the facilitators of this trip. The only other thing, Devin, is I actually don't think we should use the word birthright because that's a trademark term by the Jewish community. I think I have the wording that I've used before. Give you 1 second.
Steph, just to kind of answer your question, the current sort of trajectory that we're anticipating is that this first tour is meant to be a pilot project, and we're taking it on as currently planning to take it on in conjunction with Cobblestone Freeway Tours. And based on how that goes and how the feedback we get looks, we're hoping to then approach the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, possibly the Ukrainian World Congress, to suggest that this grow into a larger project with their support. So it's not necessarily saying that SUSK is going to be running this project as the head people forever, but more so that we're looking into creating a pilot project. And maybe
can you, instead of offering a Ukraine travel program, can you put create? Because my fear with using the word offer is that SUSK is committed to like funding this thing, because like, as you know, in birthright trips, like those students get everything paid for and then they go for free. And I don't want people to have this misconception that SUSK is now like $1 million organization that can fund birthright trips.
Yes, definitely.
So yeah, that's my only fear.
Devin, my wording is in the chat.
Thank you.
Annual memory journey to Ukraine that connect Ukrainian youth around the globe with their ancestral roots.
Got it. And
yeah, and the reason we're leaving out any kind of potential organizational collaborations is I don't want to limit ourselves to it. So if one organization is not keen on assisting us in this, I want to keep it open that we can always approach another one.
So let's see. SUSK will work towards creating, we could even say an
annual memorable journey to Ukraine to connect Ukrainian youth around the globe with their ancestral roots.
So why don't we say we'll work towards creating a pilot project for a new program to offer an annual memorable journey to Ukraine that connects Ukrainian youth around the globe to their ancestral roots. To be launched when international travel is deemed safe again, la la la. How does that look?
Yep, that's fine.
Steph, does this look better?
Yeah, that's better. That puts me a bit more at ease.
Okay, great. And just to give you a bit more information, the hope is that eventually, at some point in the future, a separate foundation would be created to raise the money. So that's not something that we're ever anticipating is going to be on our plate.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that SUSK isn't taking off more than it can chew, because there's a lot of initiatives that SUSK is coming forward with and things that, like, even in my day haven't been finished. And so I fear overcommitting ourselves to something as big as this. So I think that the way the wording stands, it sounds more like we're going to try and make sure that this program becomes a thing, but we don't like own the thing.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Oh, we have to vote on that. All in favor of this resolution? Opposed? And abstentions? Great. Okay. Resolution 27. We're almost done, folks. Whereas SUSK as a non-for-profit organization is required to hold a minimum of 1 AGM for all member organizations per calendar year, and whereas one of SUSK's mandates, uniting USOs and Ukrainian Canadian students, provides opportunities to share best practices, be it resolved that SUSK holds a 2021 National SUSK Congress as the AGM in a specified Canadian city or online, if required due to the coronavirus pandemic. Be it further resolved that the National Board of Directors and the National Coordinator provide budget estimates of various locations, at least one city per region. Any proposed amendments?
Yeah, I actually propose that we put it in our resolution this year that we plan to hold Congress in Toronto next year, given that preparations were made and partnerships were already created that kind of fell through due to COVID-19.
Thoughts from other folks on that?
I agree on that.
Any other thoughts? I know I'd heard from some folks that there was a hope from the Victoria team to possibly put in a application for, or a proposal for a Victoria Congress. I don't know if anyone wants to speak to that at all, or if we just want to go ahead and say Toronto for next year. Nastia says, can it be discussed with the new SUSK board once Congress planning begins? Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, but typically speaking though, one thing we do try to do is vote on or have an idea during kind of Congress, and given that our actual Congress will only be 8 months away at this point in time, I think it's something that's a decision that should be made today.
Further thoughts?
Yeah, okay, so just gonna rationalize this with everyone here. I assume that there were also deposits made in Toronto as well, so we also don't want SUSK to be, you know, on an unfortunate financial end as a result.
Good point.
I disagree that we typically make this decision at the Congress, but I do think that there is a lot of value in going with something that has already had deposits and sponsors lined up. I know it really sucks. I don't necessarily think that it has to be in these resolutions, but if there can be like a be it resolved stating that like the 2019 and 2020 board worked towards building a Congress in Toronto and blah, 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 something about deposits, and those should be taken in consideration for the 2021 Congress.
Raya says, we had a lot of sponsors lined up for Toronto Congress, which I don't think we should throw away. That's a very valid point. And Victoria can always be considered for the next year. All excellent points. Steph has proposed perhaps that we reflect that in the resolution Any other further thoughts before we start tinkering with the wording itself? No? Okay.
I guess, sorry, one more thing. I don't have time to write it down, but in terms of like past Congresses, we had Ottawa and then Banff, and then Winnipeg. So it makes, like, that's why we had in Toronto this year. Like, we were supposed to, it makes sense. It's supposed to be kind of a central region next Congress. So that's kind of another reason why we should have it in Toronto.
Well, we did have, perhaps rather than drawing this all out again, perhaps I like Steph's idea of saying, you know, be it further resolved that the National Board of Directors and National Coordinator provide budget estimates on various locations, each one city per region, or acknowledging that the 2019 to 2020 Congress Planning Committee had a full Congress with sponsors planned for Toronto, and that
Contracts were signed and deposits were made.
Contracts were signed. So we could leave that up to the board, and you know, that may very well mean that we are obligated to fulfill that commitment, and if so, that's what we'll do. But we can leave further deliberations and conversation perhaps to the upcoming or the incoming board of directors. How does that sound?
I also want to put in that be it further resolved that SUSK commits to inviting international representatives to next year's Congress.
Oh, I like that. Commits to inviting international delegates or individuals?
International student group representatives.
Ooh. Next year's Congress, okay. And of course, remembering that we truly don't know what the next year is going to hold, and with coronavirus, we may be online again next year. So, and perhaps let's say that SUSK commits to if international travel is possible following the coronavirus pandemic, because I really, really love this idea, but we just don't know what a year from now is going to hold. Okay. Any other thoughts or specific amendments or questions? No? Alrighty, let's vote. So all in favor? Opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, moving on. Resolution 28. Whereas the revenues for SUSK have varied greatly over the last many years, and whereas the financial stability of SUSK will allow for sustainable continuity and growth, be it resolved that SUSK continue its fundraising efforts for the SUSK Endowment Fund, and be it further resolved that member USOs support SUSK's fundraising efforts to ensure their own sustainability through whatever means possible. Any questions? No? Okay, all in favor? Oh, sorry, Roman.
Yeah, I again, it comes down to, I don't think we should regulate a USO's fundraising efforts.
Excellent point. This is directly what we had in last year, but you're right, this year is different. Do you want to just take this one out for now, or do you want to change the wording?
Let's just take it out for now.
Okay. Great, okay. Any other comments, amendments? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? And any abstentions? Okay. Last few, folks. Resolution 29. Whereas SUSK has archival material at the National Library and Archives of Canada in Ottawa, Ontario, and whereas SUSK continues to collect and discover archival material relevant to its history, be it resolved that the incoming alumni director develop an archival submission plan to add any relevant material to the archive at the National Library and Archives of Canada.
I would remove alumni director and just put somebody from the board of directors because people's mandates may change this year.
Okay. The incoming SUSK National Board of Directors there we go. Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Alrighty. And last but certainly not least, Resolution 30, whereas USOs require financial assistance to remain sustainable student organizations, and whereas many new USOs often lack the experience to know how to effectively find and apply for funding opportunities, be it resolved that the incoming Vice President Finance explore innovative fundraising and partnership opportunities and develop a plan to involve USOs, and be it further resolved that the incoming Vice President Finance will offer support to the treasurers of member USOs in budget creation and grant writing. Any questions or proposed amendments to this? No? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Any abstentions? All right. Congrats, folks. We've gotten through all of the resolutions as written, but it is important that we also provide an opportunity for anyone from the floor to bring forward any resolution topics that they would like to see included in this year's resolutions. So if there's something that you feel that we missed, now is your opportunity to voice that.
So I'll get started. First off is the question around my tax. So I think we have to basically, whereas SUSK has worked in partnership with Shevchenko Foundation and my tax in the past, be resolved that SUSK continues its work and develops the relationship with the Shevchenko Foundation and my tax.
Okay, sorry, can you read that again?
Yeah, so whereas SUSK has worked in partnership with the Shevchenko Foundation and the My Tax program in the past, My Tax program.
Oh, my apologies.
Be it resolved that SUSK continues its work with the My Tax program and the Shevchenko Foundation.
I think we can just leave it at continue this work. Okay. Any, is that good, Roman?
Yeah.
The wording? Okay. Any questions or proposed amendments about this resolution? No? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, Roman?
Yeah, that's good.
Sorry, did you have another?
Yeah. Whereas SUSK,
hold on just a second here,
has been able to build a strong national presence and has effective structures and governance in place, be it resolved that SUSK explore assisting international community organizations in building proper governance structures and building a strong international Ukrainian community.
Sorry. Be resolved that SUSK explore assisting international community organizations in
Building,
building.
In building proper governance structures
Mhm.
to support the growth of the larger Ukrainian community. And be it further resolved that SUSK explore rejoining SKUMA as an organization. That's with a C.
Okay. And can you just give us a little further background on this one?
It's actually it's in my opinion a very simple one. I think that we have a strong presence here. We've been able to build a good organization, and I think that speaking to other individuals around the world, that they are not as fortunate as in having such a strong, cohesive organization. I think that we owe it to ourselves to be able to share our best practices and help them put in place proper mandates. SKUMA in particular is an organization that has been criticized in the past and one that SUSK has officially left. I have been in recent conversations with the president of SKUMA, and I think that there may be an opportunity, whether it's officially or unofficially, for us to get involved and try to make a difference there.
Great.
Steph,
I see
you want to say to me?
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm against this resolution. Those of you who have been here a long time know SKUMA and their capabilities or lack of capabilities. I think it's fine to commit to growing an international community, but I don't think that SKUMA should be explicitly stated in the Be It Resolved, only because they have been in resolutions in the past, and we have tried to work with SKUMA. And so I really don't think that we should say that we're going to explore the possibility of rejoining them, because every time we do, and I'm sure Raya can speak to this, they have been ridiculously corrupt and will not tell us where their money goes. So I think this is like a valiant effort for SUSK. I think it's fantastic. And I think that I can agree. I mean, like, I'm not even a voting member, so I'm just here expressing my opinions. So there's nothing wrong with it, but I just don't think SKUMA should be explicitly stated. I think it should say that we're working towards building or supporting international or Ukrainian new youth internationally, because I really don't know if SKUMA is the best way to do that. But I am also open to hearing. I mean, I'm not voting, so feel free.
I'd like to second what Steph says. I was on the board of SKUMA 2 years ago, and had to pull out because of kind of the same thing that Steph was saying in terms of corruption. Understanding that, you know, there is turnover within an organization, and we can definitely have conversations with SKUMA, but I agree we should not have it specifically stated in our resolutions.
All right. Any other questions or proposed amendments before we
so let's leave it as this then. That SUSK explore the possibility of
German, you just muted yourself.
Yeah, I did. SUSK explore the possibility of working with international youth groups.
International Ukrainian youth organizations or groups?
Yeah, organizations is fine. And take out SKUMA.
Okay.
Staff Raya?
That's fine.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And like I do want to say that it is really important that we do work with people internationally, and you know, maybe we can beef up the role of external relations director again. And I mean, some of the things that I tried to do in my day was work with Ukrainian student unions at different universities. And I think the board can talk about all of the different ways that they can actually work together on something like this. So yeah, in short, I think that's good.
Great. We could even look at the possibility of connecting with other diaspora Ukrainian youth organizations as well. Any further comments, questions, or proposed amendments? Okay, hearing none. Calling the question, all in favor? Opposed? And any abstentions? Great. Any other further resolutions that would like to be brought from the floor? Roman, did you have any others?
No.
Okay. Any other further resolution items? Okay, hearing none, I will propose that we move on to the next part of our meeting. And once again, I just really want to thank the Resolutions Committee for all of their incredibly hard work in drafting those resolutions. There was a lot of new content added this year. So big, big thank you to Nastia, Irina, Chase, for all their hard work. And now all that's left to do is adjourn the 2020 National SUSK Congress. I suppose I will do this. So Devin noted that all matters on the agenda of the 2020 National SUSK Congress have been dealt with, and that the minutes of the meeting will be made available to you folks by August 31st, 2020. And I want to thank everyone who is present, and declare the Congress closed at 11:59 a.m. PST, 12:59 p.m. MST, 1:59 p.m. CST, and 2:59 p.m. EST. I believe I got that right. Okay.
I just want to add quickly, everybody, this was definitely a weird experience for all of us. It was a lot different, as you can all imagine. I mean, I think I may speak for myself or everybody, but the physical aspect of SUSK Congress is something that I look forward to, and I think that all of you guys look forward to. So unfortunately, we could not have it this year, but I think that we had a relatively successful Congress, obviously not to the same extent that we would have in person, but again, thank you all for your participation. I think as mentioned earlier and as mentioned throughout the weekend, that it is because of your participation and your interest that we are able to set a proper mandate for next year, and hopefully we can kind of get back to a new normal for next year and run a very successful Congress wherever it may be.
And I really want to encourage all of you to let us know what we as SUSK can do for you moving into this very strange, surreal, pandemic upcoming semester year. We want to help you. We want to make your experience as seamless as possible. So truly, let us know what we can do for your member USOs. And there will also be I'm blanking on the word, feedback form sent out a little later on. So I'd encourage you all to fill that out. And yeah, like Roman said, thank you so much for participating, everyone. And thank you, Naziri, for the reminder. Naziri and a few other folks had suggested that we try doing a group photo screenshot style. So if you're comfortable, I would love to do that. I'm going to stop the recording now.